Welcome to The Unspoken Truth. I'm your host, Rob Russ.
And I am half drunk, Edwin Anderson. Not kidding. Not kidding. Not kidding. I've only had a sip.
It's midday somewhere in the world, right? How are you today, mate? You good?
I'm living the dream, Robbie. How about you down there under there?
We're good. Doing really well. I got a fun video to unpick here with you today. There's nothing better than I like, more than making fun of a communist. I think it's funny. So in the last couple of days, it was about 4 days ago now, the DPRK, or North Korea. You know, the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic, they're not democratic and they're not a people's republic. The Kim Jong-un is a living deity. He's the living god, according to his rules. But
you're really good golfer.
Yeah. He's just a fat slob, according to me. They had a huge military parade, and the reason I wanted to talk about that today is they do these parades periodically, which seems like every 4 or 5 months. But there's a whole bunch of new equipment that's been on display, which is representing some serious new threats. And I just want to take you through that and have a bit of a discussion about that, because I think it's kind of fun and it's a bit of a piss take all at the same time. So let's get started. All right, Ed, the way that I'm going to run this one, let me just fix the screen here, is I'm going to add to the stream the parade itself. Man, oh man, when you watch it, it goes for 2.5 hours. So I just got a couple of timestamps in here that I want to play with, and I just want to highlight some things here because I think it's really important. So I'm not going to play the audio because it has this annoying 1950s music on it and all this communist stuff that's going on. So I just want to play the videos and show you actually how they've stolen our technology. And I want to start off by I want to start off here by saying that I told you so. and I want to have the extension of that by saying, what did you think was going to happen? So if you let the enemy inside the gate, and the way the enemy are coming inside the gate for you folks there in the United States is literally walking through the gate in the southern border. And we know that the enemy are extremely sophisticated. The Chinese enemy are the most prolific thieves of other people's technology in the history of theft. No race, no country, no ideology has been more successful in stealing Western technology than the Chinese. And we know that because of what we see in their military, but also in other aspects of their society as well. And the Chinese must look at us and just go, they're a bunch of mugs, is the way you describe that in Australia. They're a bunch of idiots. We could easily get in there and steal their stuff. There is no security there. There is no way for them to stop us from getting it done. And let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, it was a long time ago now. It was probably, what is it now, 2023? It was in, I think, 2005, 2006. I worked for an agency in the city, one of the biggest marketing agencies out there. And I was building a piece of technology for Coke at the time and working on some marketing projects and stuff. It was really fun. It was a really fun place to work, and great dynamic industry in the marketing space, and working for one of the biggest marketing companies in Australia was a lot of fun. I kind of cut my teeth there and learnt the ropes, and it was really enjoyable. But I needed a developer to help me, and back in the day, it was the early days of Upwork, and I found a developer from Hungary. He was from Budapest, and he was a really dialed in, squared away guy. He'd kind of wound up his business. He went on to Upwork, and he needed a bit of a hand with some stuff, but he was a cybersecurity guy, but he was also a programmer, and I needed the programmer, but because he was a cybersecurity guy, I really understood how he could be of more benefit, and he added more value because of his ability to lock down things and to break things and make sure the stuff that we were creating was not going to be broken. Anyway, eventually he had to come to Australia because I couldn't do the project remotely anymore because of the bandwidth issues that we had. So we put him on a plane, brought him here, he came here, and one of the things that we were working on was the project we worked on during the day, and then I socialized with him in the evening because he was away from his family, and he was here for a couple of weeks, so I got to know him really well. But he was saying to me that there's no cybersecurity here in Australia. It's like I'm just walking around with my laptop. I can just hack into that Wi-Fi network and access whatever I want. And he asked me, he said, Rob, why don't we set up a cybersecurity company? And what you can do is go around and say, hey, do you know your networks are really vulnerable and I can attack those networks? And it's like, wow, what a load of shit. Well, why don't I show you that? And if I can show you how I can get in and access your emails and access your files there, maybe I can show you how we can lock it down. Do you agree to me to do that? And he said, all you got to do is just get me on the phone, let me remote into your computer, and I'll do it remotely for you. And I did it a couple of times. And he was able to successfully access these networks and do a whole range of things and make it all happen. And one time he was telling me about a job that he worked at Budapest Airport. And he was the network engineer. He had to go in there, and he got into the network, and he was doing his things, and he thought to myself, well, what if I was a nefarious actor? And he's one of these people that's like, he's doing it because he wants to secure it, not because he has a nefarious intent. And he said within 10 minutes, he was in the air traffic control system in the airport. And he could have there was nothing he could do with the air traffic control system, but he could have turned off all of those computers, all of them. Just turn them off. And then all of a sudden the controllers are like, our computer's not working. Reboot the computer. And the computers just wouldn't come back on because he turned the power off. And he's turning the power off further upstream, turning it off at the generators, turning it off at these different places. And back in the day, in the early 2000s, there was just no sophistication in any sort of cybersecurity. And what we're seeing in the United States is exactly that, is that you think that everything's okay. But you've seen the FBI come out and say, every 20 minutes we have to open up a new bloody investigation because somebody's been robbed. And, somebody's been, they've either been crypto locked or some sort of ransomware, or they've just had their stuff stolen. And the cops are continuously investigating these things, and they have these entire divisions of actually doing it. And so my point is, I told you so. That's the first thing. And what did you think was going to happen is the second thing. So do you agree with that sentiment, Ed, before I go on?
Absolutely.
All right, let me show you the front end of this, and just bear with me as I scrub through this video, because it goes for 2 hours and it's too much effort to kind of pull it all apart and to see. But the very first thing that we see in this parade is the video production that you see is not live. So you're not watching this live, and when it was broadcast, it was not live. And the reason you can tell that is because there's some speed ramping in it. And if you watch closely, the cameras are panning and they're switching around with the cameras. It's a really polished production. They really got their video production squared away nicely. They've learned all the lessons of the past and made it look really very, very modern. But you'll see sometimes it's panning and then it suddenly speeds up. And that's called a speed ramp in editing. And that can only happen in post-production. You can't do that in real time. So there's no way to do it. So the very first thing that we see flying over Pyongyang there is what looks like. What does that look like to you?
Well, it looks like a 747 or something. I'm sure it's a drone, but it looks like a.
So straight up as I play that video. So if you're a military guy like me and you can see it, it looks a little bit like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what that is, right? That's a Reaper.
Drone. Yeah.
Yeah. So RQ9 Reaper, and there's Predator as well. But when you look really closely at some of the videos, this is what we have, which is RQ4 Triton or Global Hawk. Yeah, so this Triton Global Hawk technology, they now have it. So watch the video, you will see, if I just play it for a little bit. So that's their version of the Reaper. So that's the Global Hawk there. So when you look closely at it, it looks exactly like that, doesn't it?
Yep.
Pretty hard not to discern the difference between that engine on the top, the round bulbous nose. See, even the angle on the front of the nose there is very similar. See how they've got this?
Even the V-tail.
Yeah, and the V-tail, yeah, that's very distinct in what's actually going on. So what we're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Chinese go away and steal the technology from Northrop Grumman, hand it off to the North Koreans and actually build it themselves. Or they've actually reverse engineered the stuff themselves, the Chinese that is, and figured it out themselves, and here it is. Now, all of a sudden, you've had the adversary steal your stuff and turn it back inside of yourself. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a documentary that I was watching, and it was before Syria. So we'd worked Afghanistan, we'd worked Iraq, but we hadn't quite got into Syria. And this documentary was then, and so it must have been somewhere circa 2015, 2016. And it was about the American military industrial complex. And what it was about was how American-made weapon systems had never fallen into the hands of the enemy and been used against us. And I can remember when this ISIS thing happened, al-Zakari was the beginning of that, the genesis of that, when he was taking journalists and cutting their heads off on camera. And that's where ISIS came from, right? And then the caliphate was born, and then it was all happening and was all going on. And then the Americans went, well, maybe if we give them some weapons, they can get rid of Assad for us, the enemy of my enemy type thing. And all of a sudden, I remember the first time I saw it, I was so alarmed, because I remember thinking, imagine if part of the reason that we're so successful as a military is because we have all the gear and we have all the training to match the gear. and it's not a fair fight, and it's never going to be a fair fight because we've got better equipment. And I remember seeing an airdrop in Syria where these ISIS guys wearing GoPros, because they all wore GoPros right back in the day, they were running up to these this cargo that had been dropped out of a C-17, and they open the box, and it's a box full of hand grenades. They open another box, it's a box full of M4s. They open another box, it's a box full of M4 magazines and all the 5.56 ammunition. And I'm like, now ISIS have got all of our stuff. And I remember thinking at the time, how could they get it so wrong? I've been involved in airborne and parachute operations for a long time. How did they, you know where the enemy is? Like, how did you drop? It's not an accident. It was all on purpose. And then all of a sudden you see the enemy running around with our weapon systems. And whether or not you've got the training, they are very effective weapon systems. There's been a long process to actually get to that point to say, American soldiers are going to use that rifle, and they're going to use that bayonet and that drink bottle. It's a very sophisticated process. But now we have the Chinese going, don't worry about it, we'll just go and steal the plans and build it ourselves. We've got the industrial capability. So it's a really scary proposition. And what we're seeing is this actually playing out in real time now. And it's very annoying for me to see this, because falling into the hands of the enemy like this is, it's just terrible. So there we go. They've got an ISR capability, and using what looks like RQ4 and certainly MQ9 Reaper style technology. So, you know, is that going to make a difference on the battlefield in Korea? I don't know. The thing will get plinked off out of the sky in about 20 seconds by an F-22 or an F-35. But the point is, they've got that capability, and they've stolen it from us.
Yeah, well, what did you think was going to happen?
I don't know, man. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I don't know.
The standard operating procedure in China, to do business in China for decades, has been, okay, yes, you can come in. We'll give you all the cheap labor that you want. All we need you to do, turn over all of your blueprints. Of
your IP.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think the Chinese have invented very much of anything on their own in the past several decades.
I reckon they've invented the way to reverse engineer stuff, which is pretty good, because that's not an easy task to do, right? And if you see an idea and go, I can do that.
Why bother reverse engineering? They've got, Raytheon personnel on payroll.
Just handing the plans off to them.
They have to reverse. There's no guessing. There's no reverse engineering. It's direct engineering.
It's no joke when you see the technology, right? It's funny. The Russian defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, is attending this parade. You'll see that in a second, and it's funny as hell when you see him. He's about as cranky as 10 cranky people. And I think he might be pissed off that the Chinese took their Su-30 technology and reverse engineered it, and they had to walk back the deal. So there's a series of things that have happened to the Russians, the same as it's happened to us as well, all at the same time. So let me just have a look at my little notebook here, and I'll fast forward to some timestamps here for us, because I think it's pretty interesting. I'll pull it here to, I think it's the...
Anyway, so this is in North Korea, not China. This is North Korea, right?
Correct, yeah. Wow. So okay. They've got a pretty good video just here that I will play the sound to this one. So watch this. It's pretty slick production. So here they are, these goose-stepping communists.
These are like 3 feet tall, right? These guys?
Yeah, there's no overweight people there either. They're all pretty hungry. They got some. They look pretty happy in what they're doing.
Well, they better. They better.
They better be. So we see the usual North Korean march past and whatnot. It's hard to drag it. I can't be very precise with it. So here's the propaganda video that they have. Watch how slick it is. It's really good. They're always looking at their watch, the North Koreans, for some reason. So it shows all their capabilities and what they've got going on. Some anti-ship missiles. There you go. There it is. There it is right there. So now when I look at it, that's it there. That's their version. This is our version. Their version. Our version. Pretty close, right?
Well, and when I don't think versions. They're not versions. They're the exact same thing. They just have different.
Their version.
Yeah.
Sorry, our version. Our version.
What are your versions? They just have different flags on them. They
Literally.
the exact same vehicle.
They have
Really?
literally. When I look closely at it, so I can see it's got 8 what appear to be air-to-ground missiles. And when I a further analysis and I looked really closely at it, I can see this Chinese helicopter. This is their attack helicopter, so their version of an Apache or a Tiger helicopter, so to speak. And this missile system here is what appears to be on this. And there's some close-ups in the parade. So what it says to me is that they have an anti-armor capability using these things. So they've been watching us for years. They know exactly how we employ these weapons, and now they've got the capability to actually do that. Whether these weapon systems that they're using, these missiles here, these anti-tank missiles, are any good remains to be seen. Who really knows? We can only tell from the exercises that they shoot that they seem to be pretty accurate, but what's the reliability of something
And as
like
far as
that?
we know,
Who knows?
couldn't these drones be on loan from China for the parade?
Well, that's the other thing, right? So you got to be careful at what you're looking at, because they show you all of this content, but do they only really have 3 of these drones? And that's what you're seeing. And it appears like they've got hundreds of them or thousands of them or something like that, but actually, no, they don't. They can barely feed their population, and they can barely feed themselves. The only overweight person in North Korea is Kim Jong-un himself.
Yeah.
But here's the march past of a bunch of girls as well, which is pretty good. Is that the entire army, or is that just a percentage of the army? Each one of those squares of people looks like a battalion of people. So how many battalions are there? If you stop the video and count them, and is this a transport battalion, then a logistics battalion, and here's a battalion of sailors? Like, I don't know what I'm looking at. No one really knows for sure. You can zoom into the nuance.
Those could just be a bunch of college kids in uniform.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And when you look at the crowd, you see all the old people in the crowd. They're sitting there in their old uniforms, and they're wearing their old medals and their insignia and stuff like that. So all of those people were conscripted at one point and were in the military. So it's pretty... It's interesting to look at, but I'm not entirely convinced that any of it actually means anything, or you could join the dots with any of it. So let me just pull it forward here to his arrival, because it's kind of funny when he arrives. He gets out of the car and he's saying hello to everyone.
He's wearing a suit now.
Yeah, so it's all... I'll turn the sound up so you can hear him marching around the communist town. A lot of their marching and their doctrine looks very Russian. It's like a hybrid of Russian and Chinese when you look at what they're doing. But I don't know, man. He looks like he's got a tummy ache when he's coming in there. He's not really happy about it.
He doesn't want to be there, man. He's going to be bothered. Well, I got to go to this thing tonight.
It's like the biggest thing that's going on in their country, and he's got to actually be the lead person. Watch when he shakes hands. He doesn't look at them in the face. He looks at their hand. The body language in these things is really important, I think. It shows you whether they care or they don't care.
Yeah.
There he goes. He stops and he looks at him, but doesn't pay attention.
Yeah, whatever.
Kind of salutes him.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever. He's just looking at their hands, right?
Yeah,
so he gets it.
What am I going to have for dinner tonight?
Yeah, it's funny, right? The body language of this freak tells you so much. And everyone's coming down, and they're all excited to meet the living deity, the god. Remember, in North Korea, folks, he's worshipped as a god.
Yeah.
He is actually a god. There's a great book out there by Michael Malice called Dear Leader, and it's all the North Korean propaganda. And they want you to read it. They want you to see this, because they want you to know who they are and the propaganda that they have. And when you read about it, this guy was, he was kissed on the dick when he was a little baby, and all sorts of things happened. He's hit like 15 hole-in-ones on the golf course, and he's a way better golfer than Donald Trump. Yeah. There's all this crazy propaganda out there, and you can read it in the Dear Leader book. If you can stomach it, it's kind of fun for the first, 20 minutes of listening to it. And after about 20 minutes, you're like, what the hell is this? What on earth are they talking about? And it goes to a place that you never thought it would go to. He's a movie producer. He's a movie star. He's an actor. He's a professional athlete. He does all sorts of these crazy things. And they want you to believe that he's literally a living deity. Yep. And the North Koreans believe it. They believe the propaganda that it's actually true. And I guess that they've got no choice to believe it, because they rely on the government for everything. If they don't believe it and they speak out against it, then they're not going to be able to eat. And they can barely eat as it is. So,
what's the name of that girl who escaped from North Korea?
Yomi Park.
Yeah, Yomi Park. People should YouTube her and listen to some of her stories about what life, what it's like, to what happens to you if you insult this man, the things they do to you. I mean, look, say what you want. She has a lot of really compelling stories.
Understand how their society works. That's why they put the propaganda out, right? Is what they say is the father, Kim Il Sung, so
Yep.
his dad, understood exactly what you just said. He recognized that. And because he understood that and recognized it, he started the nuclear program. Because the only way that you could unseat somebody from society is with a war. But if I've got more weapons than you and the cost of you invading me, trying to unseat me from society is so high that you wouldn't attempt it, we can live here forever. And that's why he continues to grow his military and continues to acquire nuclear weapons. And one thing that we never hear any discussion about is like, what chemical weapon systems does he have and what biological weapons does he have? We never hear anything about that because we know the Russians have got extensive programs in relation to that. They never got rid of all of that. When all of those treaties were signed in the 1970s and 80s saying we're not going to use these, none of that actually came to pass. So Kim is saying goodbye to everybody and he's bowing and pretending like he cares about his subjects. And Sergei Shoigu is trying to he's not very happy about any of it. I think he wants some of his Iskander missiles back. Either way, it's a very strange event to watch like that in real time. And I just wanted to bring that to the front and bring that to people's attention because there's a whole lot of new weapon systems and there's a whole lot of other things that have happened. There was one other development that I meant to say at the top of the show that I didn't say, and it's unrelated to North Korea, and I'll just chuck it in here as well. But we've seen some helicopter activity. So this is a Belarusian Mi-24, and here's a Belarusian Mi-17, and both of these aircraft, these two aircraft flying in formation on exercise in Polish airspace.
No.
So
Really?
the Belarusian pilots either accidentally flying into their airspace or deliberately flying into NATO airspace.
Maybe
So
testing.
no shots fired. And I'm showing you, here I am, look at you being drawn into my narrative. Here's a picture of a Belarusian Mi-24 and the two of them together in Polish airspace. Are they? I don't know. I hope the report where I pulled that from is true, but the Polish government came out and made a statement, right? So that's how
I do recognize the telephone pole there. I can confirm they are in Poland.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There it is. There's a little joke there to even finish it off there for us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed the communist parade there. You learned something about the North Koreans and how they act. I like to show people that because not a lot of people are exposed to it because you can't find it in mainstream media. They just simply don't show it. And it's actually pretty hard to find in YouTube unless you're plugged into it. But the North Koreans are pretty open and honest about everything that they do. You can go to the North Korean website and you can see their TV and they've got archives of videos in there and you can see what their society is like. It's actually worth going in, having a look. You'd be forgiven for looking at these people and thinking, well, they actually look really nice. Some of them look like they're having a good time. They look happy and it looks fun. You think that you're demonizing these people all the time, but they're just people like you and me, man. They're just in a shit circumstance. That's the difference.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I watch those videos all the time and I think, oh, they look like they're having a good time. They're out on a Sunday with their family. They look hungry, but you know, what can you do? They're making the best of the situation that they're in. Well, okay, how would you behave in that situation? I don't really know. It's a very tricky circumstance. That's for sure.
Well, part of me, part of me feels bad for them. Just like the Chinese, but part of me says, you know what? Listen, man, get a couple of your buddies together, get a couple sticks, do something, that's why I don't, this whole business about the Chinese, you see it many times that the average Chinese are good people, they're average people, they're not really communist, they don't care about communism, they don't care about politics, they don't care about this, they don't care about that, they just want to live their lives. Okay, so I watched a video today, which I'm probably going to do a video on, showing police in a Shanghai subway. Have you seen this video? These people are in a Shanghai subway and they're searching random people's phones to see whether they have VPN apps on their phones. And to see
VPN for you.
Yeah. And they're checking for Twitter and Facebook.
Really?
They're checking for unapproved, government, apps on your phone.
They don't want you outside the Great Firewall of China. They don't want you knowing what's going on in the real world, huh? Scary
Well,
stuff, man.
And how many videos have we done about the Chinese control on their people?
Yep.
Well, listen, you guys got to fucking stand up. You got to stand up. During the worldwide flu, we saw videos of these drones in Shanghai and in Beijing going between the high rises, the apartments, spraying chemicals into the air with messages saying, this is to keep you, I don't know, it's some kind of chemical for who knows what. And they have these drones in the highways. If you're driving down the road, you got to stick your phone out the window with a QR code and see whether you're approved to proceed on the highway. Remember that? So
it's crazy, people have got short memories.
So as much as I'm criticizing, the Chinese, well, I'm criticizing us too if we go down that road. We have leaders in the Western world praising China's form of government. Justin Trudeau.
The problem with individuals is, you have someone like Justin Trudeau saying he loves the Chinese and the Chinese society, and that's what the WEF wants for us. That they want a surveillance society like that because we're all just useful idiots to them, and there's too many of us, and we all have to go away. So that's what they want for us. But the reality of it is, unless you're squared away yourself, you got food on the table, you got money in the bank, and you don't have to worry about your day-to-day living, it's very, very hard for people to go and grab a stick and grab a gun and start a revolution and do all those things. Chinese people are not walking around with gold and silver, Ed. There's a lot of really, really rich Chinese people, for sure, but the vast majority of them that could rise up against the government are not there. They live in poverty and they live hand to mouth, and there's no way for them to actually make a living. So it's very hard for them to pay attention to something that the government seems okay. They're a pain in the ass, but this is the system that we live in, and I have food, I have water, I have shelter, I'm okay. I don't have much, but I can't really fight back against them because I don't have anything to fight back with, and my family's here. I've got to take care of them. Okay, so that's how they keep you in servitude.
Sure, it's very easy for me to sit here and tell them what they should be doing. Just like it's very easy for Joe Biden to tell the Ukrainians to go to the front line and fight the Russians and get your head blown off. It's very easy. By the way, that is what America is doing right now. This is a proxy war between us and Russia, and we are using these poor Ukrainian young men who have no say in the matter, who are forced to drop out of college and go to the front line and pick up a gun that never shot before, and probably end up being killed by the end of the week.
It's shocking, man. I was watching a video before here. I was just looking through my Telegram channel, and on the Ukrainian side, there's a Russian guy running across this field. He's probably about 1.5 kilometers away. It's quite a long way away. And they fire a TOW missile at him. So TOW stands for tube launch, optically fired, wire guided. So you see the TOW missile, it kind of like moves around because it's on a wire because somebody's actually controlling it. So they fire the TOW, or it could be some other version of it. It looks like a TOW, I don't know. But the guy is running across the field. He's just a little black dot running across the field, and they're firing an anti-tank guided missile at this person. Kaboom! Just like plinks him off the battlefield. 1 minute he was there, and the next minute he doesn't exist on planet Earth anymore. And they're all laughing. And I'm thinking, war is an absolute failure of humanity, man. You just like destroyed that man's life, and you destroyed all of his enemy, not invader or not. Like, war is just an absolute failure. But this is not a war for freedom. And you said it right from day dot, man. You called it on day dot. It's not about freedom. It's about money. It's about laundering. It's about destruction of the Russian economy, and it's not going well. And it's going to end very badly for all of us, man. Yep. All of us.
Well, except for the people who are moneyed interest. These people are cleaning up. Yep. BlackRock is going to make a fortune on this war.
Bricks.
Bricks. Yep. Bricks. Yeah.
They're going to solve the problem.
I mean, how good are we, Rob? We've had so many predictions that have come true on this channel that no one else has made, that have been dead on. We are so good. People should be subscribing to us like crazy. The stuff we cover.
All right. That's a good place to close it out. Don't forget, folks, we're available as a podcast over on Telegram. So come on over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Come on over to Twitter and follow us as well. All the links are in the description. Nice work today, Ed. We'll see you in the next one. It's bye for now, mate.
Thank you, Robbie.